Hello guys, Mal here, and today I present you the first episode of a series of videos that I wanted to do for quite some time, and I'm going to title Character Rumblings, because yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to rumble about Bloodborne characters. Because Bloodborne is one of the best games ever made, we all love it. It was my first Soulsborne game and he definitely changed my life for the better and for the worse. So yeah, we should definitely talk more about Bloodborne. And this is not going to be your usual lore video. I'm not going to present any mind-blowing theory or revelations. I'm just going to take a character and, discuss their story, their boss fight, if they have one, even their design, if you guys could be interested in that, and just to analyze all that can be analyzed about the character in the context of the story and the themes. And I'm going to make some references to, other media like books or movies that I enjoy and that maybe present similar characters, so I can make comparisons. And yeah, that's the plan basically. And I'm going to do this for Bloodborne first, and if you guys are interested, we can definitely move to Dark Souls, even if Dark Souls is not really my forte, but I'm still, not knowledgeable enough about the lore so that I can probably do, a couple of episodes about the major characters. And this one, the first one, I was a bit torn, I didn't really know which character to pick for the first episode. But then I just started to think back about my first playthrough, and the moment that really grabbed my attention, that truly, made me go, wow, this game is truly amazing. Like, they really get, what the Lovecraftian atmosphere should be. They really nailed it. It was when I fought Micolash for the first time. So yeah, this is going to be a character analysis of our Lord and Savior, howling madman, sexy Micolash. Where to even begin with Micolash? A character that is so larger than life and so crazy and apparently so out of place in the kinda gritty and serious world of Bloodborne at first glance, until you realize that he probably was, the cult leader of a group of crazy church fanatics that made a huge mass sacrifice in order to commune with a great one from the cosmos. That's definitely the stuff of nightmares, and it is indeed in a nightmare that we actually meet Micolash for the first time. So let's start, with a little bit of background. So our hunter just defeated Rom, the vacuous spider, and made their way through Yahar'gul, the ancient village, until they reached the One Reborn, an agglomerate of carcasses summoned by the Pthumerian Chime Maidens. Right after this gruesome boss battle, our protagonists enters a weird room. In this room there are dozens and dozens of skeletons strapped to their chairs, and each of them with a cage on their heads. The hunter has already seen some of these cages around Yahar'gul. This is not definitely the first time. And once we finally enter the Nightmare of Mensis, everything will make sense, as much as a Soulsborne plot can make sense. So, Micolash is the leader, or at least the central figure of this ritual that the School of Mensis, part of the Healing Church, was performing in order to commune with Mother Kos. Of course, there have been many theories detailing exactly what role was, Mergo, the Queen Yarnam's child was playing in this ritual? Was he trapped there? The wet nurse is there to protect him from the scholars, or were the scholars that summoned the wet nurse? This doesn't really matter when it comes to Micolash's character. What is important here is just to focus on what he says to us when we finally meet him in person in the Nightmare of Menses. He immediately addresses us in a mocking tone. And during the entire boss fight, he is one of the few characters that actually speaks to us as we fight him. He keeps addressing us as someone that he doesn't really want to fight, doesn't really want to stop. He seems more interested in having us as a companion or someone, again, to chat with. It is kind of clear that at this point, Micolash is not 100% there. I would dare to say that his mind is probably fractured by what they experienced during the ritual. And that is kind of, emphasized by the fact that he still speaks as if his comrades, his, Menses scholars were still alive, while he's clearly the only one standing. Unless you think, maybe the puppets that he summons. But still, there is, even this point, is Micolash really controlling the puppets? Or it's just the nightmare that is defending itself from us, and Micolash is just this raving madman that is running, through corridors. What I'm saying is that he is not really blocking our way, and the nightmare itself opens up without an apparent reason, like the bridge just falls down, goes up, and whatever. I always get confused by those two bridges. There is no, it's not like we are taking a key from Micolash's cage and opening the door for ourselves. It seemed like the nightmare is inviting us to proceed. And you can say that, this is true for most of the bosses, just the door just opens when the boss dies. But still, Micolash reveals lots of really interesting informations about the plot. For once, he's the first one that mentions Mother Kos in the main game. Now, a little parenthesis, when I played the game, the DLC was already out. So I spoiled that for myself. I mean, I knew who Kos was, but that's beside the point. What Micolash does for the narrative is connecting the past to the present, because the DLC, The Hunter's Nightmare, is a reconstruction, like some sort of voyage to the past. It is not, 100% accurate, because it's a nightmare, is a twisted version of the past, or at least that's what most people interpret it as. And I tend to agree, because it is clear that it is more symbolic than literal. But again, Micolash connects the present of the healing. Micolash represents the present of the healing church that is now in complete disarray. The choir is reduced to only a few members. One of them has possibly gone mad, and I'm referring to Edgar. And Yuri, we don't really know what she was doing in Bergenworth. Was she protecting Willem? Was she there to... Was she? Yeah, I don't know, sorry. Was she there to kill him, to steal whatever little insight he could have? We don't know. What we know is that the School of Menses and Micolash, by reflection, were the ones that had a hand in the destruction of the choir. At least they kidnapped some of the choir members and they tortured them in the dungeons, and all the tools that Micolash uses during the boss fight are actually discoveries made by the choir guys. So again, it is implied that the School of Mensis took over what once was the choir, and that they stole their research for nefarious purposes, of course. We all know that the choir, they weren't saints in their right, but in the main game it is presented as if the School of Mensis, they are definitely the bad guys, at least in this scenario. Micolash knows about Kos. Why? That was the biggest question that I had. He knows about Kos because he knew it. I mean, he learned it because he stole the research of the choir, or he knew it because he was a former student of Bergenworth. After all, he still wears the uniform of the school. And so maybe was he there when the slaughter of the fish in Hamlet happened? We don't really know. What we know is that Micolash is severely disappointed by what Rom was able to accomplish. Rom is, of course, the vacuous spider. She's so cute and she has so many flowers on her back, and I want to hug her. But that aside, Rom was probably, again, I hate that I have to keep saying probably, maybe, but yeah, that's Saltborn for you. Rom was probably a student of Bergenworth, or actually it is more likely that she was a child when she was transformed into a great one. And this is kinda, the same direction that the Racine took with the fairies. This is a bit of a spoiler, but in case you haven't played the Racine, I haven't played it, but I watched other people playing it. I watched playthroughs and I know what's going on in that game. What the scholars of the Racine were trying to accomplish is that they were trying to create these fairies, to summon them, and fairies or spirits. It is kind of implied that, of course, they are not the fairies from the fairy tales. They are really sinister spirits, especially if they are created in the wrong way. And the right way, apparently, to turn someone into a fairy is to transform this person when they're still a child. And there are many parallels between Bergenworth and the scholars of Ron in the Racine. So I'm not going to, go further into this, but just for you to know, it is most likely that Rom was intended to be like a baby turned into a great one. And that would explain, in a sense, why she is vacuous, why she's stupid, to put it simply. Because she was never matured to begin with. She was innocent. And this is interesting, going back to Micolash, because Micolash is envious of a being that is literally an idiot. And I find this really, really interesting, especially if we compare his situation to that of the Lovecraftian cosmology. In Lovecraft, the superior god, the creature that, really is the most terrifying and most powerful of them all, is a being called Azathoth. Azathoth is named the blind idiot god and the demon sultan, but mostly the blind idiot god. Azathoth is this creature, this being that has no mind. So in Lovecraft, his idea of supreme horror was for mankind to realize that their god, their creator, had no plans for them. Like, there was no divine design behind the existence of mankind. It was all by accident, and the gods don't care. And if they care, like other, minor gods like Nyarlathotep or Yog-Sothoth or Shub-Niggurath, most of them, at best, they will, how can I say this? They will make your life very miserable. And but most of the times they just don't care. So don't waste your prayers. Yeah. Going back to Micolash, it is interesting to compare, Rom to Azathoth, because you get Micolash, a cultist, to put it simply, that really, really wishes he could obtain the same level of enlightenment that Rom obtained. But at the same time, it is kinda implied that Micolash realizes that Rom, albeit, she is superior to him now, because she is a great one and a proper one at that, but she is still not perfect. And Micolash wants to imitate Rom. He wants to be granted eyes by Kos. And this could mean that maybe Rom himself, was granted eyes by Kos. Actually, this is actually what Micolash says, pardon me. He actually says, as you once did for the vacuous Rom. So it is 100% true, at least as far as Micolash knows, that Rom was granted eyes by Kos. And once again, it means that before the fishing hamlet, or at least before Kos was killed, somehow the scholars of Bergenwerth had the ability to interact with her in a way or another. Maybe even after her death, they could have used maybe her umbilical cord that was stolen from her body, and Rom was the one that they decided to test this umbilical cord on. But again, this doesn't matter. What I find really interesting about Micolash is also the way he seems completely oblivious that he is already dead, which is what makes him somehow sympathetic. It really feels like he has no clue of how long he has been in the nightmare. And again, that's kind of the same level of pity that I feel for many other characters in this setting. I mostly pity them. Yeah. Micolash is also one of those characters that is very, very brainiac. Like, all his existence, all that matters to him is what he can achieve with his mind, which is really telling, if you compare it to other characters that will literally, jump at you and kill you with their claws and stuff. Micolash is okay, it's fine to keep his own distance and let the other NPCs, the other mob creatures in the arena, take care of you as he serenades you with his lovely howls and his pompous speech about enlightenment. And he seems like he genuinely wants you to answer. Like, he seems disappointed that you are completely ignoring him, that you are just going there to kill him. There is this idea that maybe with the howling thing, he's kind of mocking the hunter. But at the same time, I think he's a nice guy. He's genuinely mad and he has no idea what he's doing anymore. But his final line is really sad. And that's, I think, the reason why some people really, really like Micolash. It is that he's not even scared of dying. He doesn't even realize that he's already dead. And all that he's worried about is forgetting all the knowledge that he has spent probably his entire life collecting. Since his days at Bergenwerth, if he were indeed a student of Bergenworth. But for the sake of this analysis, for the sake of character, I would like to think that he was indeed a student of Bergenworth, and that he saw the rise of the healing church, and then that he sneaked, his way into their ranks, probably, or maybe he left when Lawrence left. So he was one of the founders, actually. That could be even more cool, and it is kinda supported by the cut content, because Micolash was originally planned to be the head figure of the healing church. And in a way, the cut content, of course, is not canon anymore, but some of the ideas are still there, and I do think that it makes sense now to say that, yeah, Micolash is not Lawrence anymore in canon, but maybe he was one of the students that left with him. And yeah, I think it totally makes sense. And so this knowledge that he's about to lose is something like terrible to even imagine. Can we even picture what he would treasure, like the knowledge of actually reanimating dead bodies, or even seeing things that others cannot see? Our hunter at this point in the story is quite enlightened himself or herself, because when you get to the Nightmare of Mensis, you usually have quite a bunch of insight. But of course, so you can see the amygdalas and stuff, and you can see everything anyway because you lifted the ritual, the veil that Rom had all over Yarnam to hide the Red Moon. But that aside, our character is intelligent at this point. That's what I'm trying to say. But Micolash is probably more intelligent than us, and by intelligent I mean enlightened in this context. I can't talk. I can't speak today. Shit. And there is this level of detachment that most characters in Bloodborne have, which is, of course, it is clear that during the ritual, the Scholars of Mensis, they dragged many people there against their will. It is, there are some of the corpses are strapped to the chairs, they have chains around their necks. And again, you can speculate that maybe they chained themselves willingly to the chairs, which is something that I 100% believe, like Micolash did. The others, not so sure, but Micolash strikes me as the kind of guy that would definitely strap himself to a chair because, he doesn't want to fall off and ruin the ritual that they have been working for so long to come to fruition. And Micolash is also a funny character in the way that he is designed, in the way that he moves. His cutscene, he's hilariously bad. Like, he has this really terrible facial animation. But they took the time to actually sculpt, a separate head for his model. The one that we see in the cutscene is not the one that his model in the game has. You can actually recreate the boss model in the character creator, while the one in the cutscene has been sculpted separately, probably again because it had to be animated, even if the lips movement is not synced to the audio. But again, that's from software. And Micolash is funny. Because not just because he goes around howling like a madman, but because he's very chill during the boss fight, and he kinda reminds me of a character from another Lovecraftian expanded universe, if you want to call it like that, character that is from a story titled The Repairer of Reputations. The Repairer of Reputations is a story by Robert W. Chambers, and it is part of the collection that is The King in Yellow. The King in Yellow is a very popular, famous book, among the Lovecraft community. to which I belong. I should probably, mention that because I keep referencing Lovecraft. That's the reason I'm really, really into Lovecraft. But again, The King in Yellow is an actual book that, by this guy Chambers, that you can buy, but it is also a pseudo-biblion in the mythos of Lovecraft and again, Cthulhu, Nyarlathotep, and all the cool guys, the cool or other gods guys. And the book in the mythos, it is a play, a novel, it is not a grimoire. It's a play, like a Shakespearean play that apparently drives you mad because it contains the absolute truth. Which is, very similar to the idea of the Eldritch truth in Bloodborne. Like The King in Yellow reveals something about reality, about human nature that the mind cannot bear. And so if you read that book and if you find out, what's going on in that book, because again, it's a play, so it is like a story, your world will never be the same. And the character I was referring to is called Hildred. And he is one of those unreliable narrators that are so dear to the weird fiction genre. And he's a super funny character. Like, he's surprisingly funny. If you read The King in Yellow, I think that you will find, again, just The Repairer of Reputations, which is the first story in the collection. The others, not so much, but Hildred in The King in Yellow is really similar to Micolash when it comes to the tone. Like, he speaks about absolute dog shit. Like, literally, he is completely insane, and all the other characters are looking at him like, what the hell are you saying? What? Like, he's obsessed with, this great purpose. Like, he firmly believes that he's destined to accomplish these awesome things that have been, to which he was destined since birth and blah, blah, blah. And it is heavily implied that these powers that he's seeking, he will find them through some sort of supernatural mean. Again, The King in Yellow is a really weird book, even for Lovecraftian expanded universe standards. But again, this is a book that I would really, really recommend you guys to check out, because the similarities between how Micolash behaves and how Hildred behaves are striking, and they both meet a really tragic and sad end, and they both die. Spoiler, and they both die in denial of the realization that everything that they have done was for nothing, that they ruined or almost ruined so many lives just to chase this abstract dream of truth and power and knowledge, which is something that truly, truly consumed them to the bone. And again, it is really, really fascinating under this, if you look at the character this way. Micolash is also a character that is interesting in the way he fights. He's not a boss in the sense that he was not designed specifically to be a boss. He's not a character that has special moves or particular equipment that you can get, or he has the only gimmick of his boss fight is the mirrors. But again, it's more like an environmental thing than him being special in a sense. He just has the power of shortcuts in a sense. And so again, compared with Maria, German, other human enemies, he's more similar to, let's say, Henrik than Gascoigne, because Gascoigne has transformation, and his mechanics during the gameplay are different or complex. You can use the little music box, while Micolash is just, for all intents and purposes, an NPC in a really nice arena with some little puppets at his disposal and the same tools that you have. And of course, his powerful almighty fists. He will punch you to death, which again, it is symptomatic of how insane it is, because he's literally going to punch a guy with a giant sword or a butcher knife or whatever the soul cleaver is, and a gun with his own, armed only with his fists. Like, Micolash will fist you to death. This sounds really, really bad, but you get my point. And I don't know, there is anything else I can say about him. I do think that they captured the tragic / comical aspect of the Lovecraftian brand of madness. There are, various levels of madness. You can have the psychopath, like, again, Hannibal Lecter. You can have the psychopath, like, again, Norman from Psycho, Norman Bates. You can have the calculating and scheming psychopath. You can have the raving madman. And you can also have the funny, charming guy that is secretly a cult leader that murdered thousands of people, including children, and would totally do that again if he could obtain this abstract knowledge that he somehow believes he would gain by doing so. And there is also this aspect which is again something that really, really fascinates me, not just about Micolash, but also about Willem and most of the scholar characters in Bloodborne and the scholar characters in Lovecraft, which is basically everyone. Like, most of Lovecraft's protagonists are scholars or antiquarians or explorers or grave robbers. They all have this interest in the dark, in these things that should not be touched. But they go there and touch the damn thing. They are literally like every protagonist in the Soulsborne games ever, that they just go around and touch stuff and bad things happen. Yeah, that's exactly how Lovecraftian characters are made. And are like, sorry. And you, as the reader, are left wondering if it was worth it. Like, if they succeeded, which usually they don't, they usually die horribly, and Micolash, again, is one of those, you are left wondering, will they actually be satisfied if they could reach that point that they yearn so much for? And the answer in Mikolash's case, it's really weird. It's because, again, he's not aspiring to, how can I say, become a Daedric prince, from the Elder Scrolls. He's not a powerful being. He's that can crush cities, or I'm thinking about characters like Sargeras from World of Warcraft and stuff like that. What these kind of characters, the Lovecraftian scholar characters, is looking for most of the time is also escapism. Like, they don't fit in the real world, and so because most of the time because of their intellect, and they want to find a place where they can put this intellect that they that they possess they want to push it to their full potential. And it is, again, a tragic tale if you want to look at that in that sense. we are, as the players, are left looking at them from the level of ignorant, inferior, unintelligent creatures and beasts. Literally, Micolash calls out, the hunter for, having a beastly mind. And so again, you have superiority complex at play here. You also have like a funny side, a tragic angle, when you as a rational person are just staring at this guy that is, for all intents and purposes, mad, that he's doing terrible things to others and to himself, because again, Micolash is dead. He killed himself for this, and we will never really know if the Nightmare of Mensis even came out the way Micolash intended it to. We don't know if Murgo was stolen by the wet nurse from the scholars. We don't know anything. We are ignorant, inferior beasts, and we will remain so for the entirety of the game. Except, the secret ending, maybe. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say about Miko Boy, the man with a cage on his head that made so many fangirls fall in love with madness and bad hygiene and untied shoelaces. I hope you enjoyed. See ya in the next episode. And next episode we are going to do, let me think. Yeah, let's do Maria next. I want to destroy her.